You're listening to the Fitzy and Wippa podcast.
Always love getting these two boys in. They are the crime reporters from the Daily Telegraph. They've got a brand new... Is this a podcast series, boys, or a video series?
Video series.
Wow.
Yeah. We're way cutting edge.
Moz, it's Moz and Josh. Thanks for coming in, boys. We've got you on, boys, about some feuding families around Sydney, but your new one, the war, Youngblood. Should we be worried about this with some of the young gangs that are hanging around Sydney at the moment?
Yeah, I've said to Josh, I don't know how many gang wars I've covered, but this is 10 times more important because these are young teenagers that are dead on our streets. Yeah. These aren't guys that have made a life choice to go out and be gangsters and die by the gun. These are guys that have just been caught up in this stupid postcode war or little gang mentality, and they're dying.
Is this like the young fellow who got stabbed at the Royal Easter Show?
Well, that is what's really kind of been the launching pad for us to delve into it a little bit more.
The guy in the shopping centre.
No, the Easter Show.
Yeah, but what about the guy at the shopping centre?
That was up in Brisbane.
Was that Brisbane,
yeah.
was it?
Yeah.
Man, that was confronting.
That vision was horrific.
He couldn't believe he'd been stabbed and then there was just blood coming from his neck.
Yeah, it's everywhere. I spoke to a guy, a former New South Wales cop who's lived with the Bloods and the Crips, and he said these kids don't know what a knife can do. Yeah. So they go with a quick jab and they've hit an artery and the guy's bled out in 3.
Do you know what's interesting? Tell me what you think about this, because we were talking about this in Victoria. They have an issue as well with gangs and young gangs. One school in particular, 35 teachers and staff have resigned because of the behaviour in the schoolyard. So it's a huge issue, and the parents are putting it down to COVID. The fact that they've been locked up and now they're getting together and they're all running an absolute muck. And one thing has grown and developed into another thing, and the next thing you know, it's what you said, Moz, which is the postcode wars.
Yeah, well, Josh, you went out there and spoke to these guys, and I always thought these gangs started mid-teens. He said that the guys told you, didn't he? He said it starts in primary school, they start making affiliations.
What?
I guess, when I was a youngster, you joined the footy club because your mate's older brother played there, and that was kind of what we did where I grew up in the bush. But for these kids, it's about joining the gangs. They'll get picked up in the afternoon from school in the brother's car, and then they'll go off and think, geez, this looks all right. And one of the biggest issues is that, and it's the reason that this is so dominant in Western Sydney, is that a lot of these kids aren't growing up with much.
Yep.
And so they're seeing an opportunity to get out
and have something.
Yeah, almost provide for their families from a young age, if not at least provide for themselves.
Yeah. Are the bikies targeting these guys?
Like grooming their victims.
Are they?
Well, they see these guys as a pool. It's kind of like NRL going out in the suburbs and trying to pick the best talent from raw talent out in the bush, and they're doing that, and they'll see a guy who what they'll say has got a bit of go in him. Or they've got criminal records. It's a breeding ground. And we've even, Josh has gone there and he's actually seen the links between the street gangs and the rappers and the Alameddine clan, allegedly.
Yeah, I think we've spoken about it with you boys before. It was the shooting at the gym in Prospect where the bullets went into the childcare centre next door. Yep. Now, police have charged a number of people over that, but 2 blokes who they allege were the shooters actually got their start in teenage street gangs and then were recruited into the big time, if that's how you want to.
That is scary.
Really nerve-wracking.
Can we go to the other end of the scale here? Because, these are young criminals that are starting like that, and you would think that, going to prison and obviously learning lessons that people might get over this, but I want the hardened criminals that always have this in their system, petty crimes for the rest of their life. Because I just read an article recently about 3 blokes, 63, 74 and 61, who were just done with a huge cocaine drug ring here in Sydney and were caught up in that. These boys have done time before, Moz.
The Grandpa gangsters.
Yes.
Kevin Theobald particularly was a guy involved in the gangland wars of the 80s, what was never really reported back then. He was telling me about a wild shootout. He said they were literally leaning out of cars going bang, 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 shooting. But he's just an institutionalised crimp. Yeah. And you just see these guys, they just can't help themselves.
Well, right, they think they're above the law, or that they've done it before and it's not that bad going in.
Well, with Theobald, I actually know he's now just been given a maximum of 8.
Right.
He'll do that standing on his ear, although he's a bit sick.
Doesn't care.
I've had some people that have spoken to him. He said, "Oh mate, it's not too bad in here."
Well, is it also that they don't know anything else in their lives? It's not like they can go get a normal job. Is that what they think to themselves, Moz? And they say, "Oh, well, this is the only thing I know what to do."
As I said, they just get into this. It is their life, and they see it as their way of life. And they even see a stint inside as, well, that's part of it. The guys they meet in, they become very close to them.
Do you know John Killick? You've ever heard of that name?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, we had him on the show once. This was about a year ago.
One of the greatest escapes ever. Beats Steve McQueen,
doesn't it? Well, this is John Killick, and he was talking on the show about trying to get out of Silverwater.
I escaped from Silverwater jail. My girlfriend at the time, she come and got me in a helicopter. They didn't land. It was hovered about a metre and a half from the ground. And, I ran and jumped in and got in, and it was the wrong thing to do, and we regret it now, but at the time it seemed a pretty good idea.
What story? I mean, he was in his 70s as well and still having a crack.
Oh, mate, he's a well-known armed hold-up bloke way back when. And that escape is just...
Is there much of that goes on?
We get it every now and then, don't we?
Very rare. I remember we used to be out at Long Bay every week just while they were waiting to catch the blokes that had just got out. There's a hole in the fence, and they used to get under, go and have some beers and go back in occasionally.
Are you kidding me?
I'm serious. I mean... Wow. Seriously, in the old days, I hate saying it, I really do, there would be sometimes up to 100 escapes a year.
You're kidding
it was
me.
Just regular. Now, they've got really good at keeping them inside, which is a really good thing. That's why they made them in prison.
Yeah. Strike Force Raptor has been a huge success, you think?
Yeah,
yes.
Massive. Well, I was down in Victoria recently and I saw a bloke riding along in a Rebels cut, and I had to do a double take because you never see that anymore.
You can't get that here at all anymore.
No, I remember we used to drive up Sunday drive to go up to Gosford and go to the Oak to get a milkshake.
Yes.
And you'd see 20, 40 bikies, and like you're a kid and you go, what? You don't see that anymore, ever. They don't wear their colours.
Well, I tell the story on this show. When I was younger, we went to Ardrossan for a family holiday, and we were at the Ardrossan Hotel having a schnitzel. And Mum, Dad, all the family and friends are there as well. And it sounded like there was an earthquake outside. There was this huge noise, shaking, and what's going on? And all the local gypsy jokers had rocked up, and there would have been about 60 of them. They all walked into the pub, and one of them took a shine to my mum. And I remember...
Doesn't look like you, obviously.
I remember...
Good old Claire.
I can remember there was this moment where I was like, oh my gosh, what's Dad going to do here? And I looked over to see what Dad's reaction was.
He had a shotgun, did he?
No, Dad was walking out the front. He was gone. He was out.
We've had a good run anyway.
Grab your schnitzels and let's go.
They were really lovely guys, and one of them still comes around for Christmas. There was 3 of them.
How old is your little brother now?
You should meet him.
He's the greatest father I've ever had. No, Moz, Josh, thank you very much for coming in. The War, Youngblood, the Daily Telegraph. It's the new video series. You can go get it at the Daily Telegraph website there. We appreciate your time, boys. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. Great work.
You're listening to the Fitzy and Wippa podcast.